Got a story to share with you, a good one, of a mother and daughter who have now won their lawsuit in a big settlement with a school district in California that was grooming the girl, that was trying to groom her into the gender cult. It's all so crazy. Take a listen. I've got some audio for you here. The mother and daughter combo, Jessica Konen, who was represented by the Center for American Liberty, filed this lawsuit on behalf of her 6th grade daughter, Alicia. The school was trying to recruit the daughter into the, quote, equality club, where she was taught about bisexuality and transgender identity. The school took active steps to help Alicia conceal her identity as a, quote unquote, boy, and gave her articles on how to keep her identity a secret from her parents. Take a listen to Jessica and Alicia announcing this week that they've won this case.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Konen.
And I'm Alicia.
And as you know, we've been battling this for quite a while now.
But we have great news. We settled our case.
We are now receiving justice from the school that decided to try to transition my daughter behind my back. This is so wrong, and this settlement right here proves in the public eye. Parents, please be bold. Stand up for your children and fight for them. Fight for your rights.
Thank you to Center for American Liberty for all of your help, and thank you for believing in me.
We let our voices be known, and we are so glad we did. Thank you.
A big victory for protecting the rights of parents and the decency of our children. Mark Trammel is the executive director and general counsel of the Center for American Liberty and joins us now. Mark, good to have you with us, sir.
Vince, thanks for having me.
Well, you must be elated by this outcome.
Yeah, it's a good day. We'll leave it at that. It's a good day.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it from where I'm sitting. Tell us about this case, how you became aware of it, and what it was like to have this fight with this school district, the Spreckles Union School District in California.
Yeah, so interestingly, about a year and a half ago, we all learned of Jessica Konen. So Jessica, she found out what was happening in her daughter's school. Her daughter was 11 years old at the time. She was a 6th grader in middle school. And she found out what was happening behind her back, that the school was transitioning her daughter socially, had given her daughter a male name. She was no longer going by Alicia, but going by Skylar. They even went as far as to change her daughter's name in the school yearbook. And they did all of this without telling Jessica. And so Jessica, as you can imagine, goes to the school board meeting and is really frustrated, really upset. And she kind of just let him have it. It was a beautiful thing to watch, and it went viral overnight. Shortly thereafter, we got connected and filed this lawsuit, and for about a year and a half have been litigating. And thankfully, the case is now settled. The school district has agreed to pay Jessica and her daughter Alicia $100,000 for their injuries, and we're elated. They're elated, and I think, Vince, what it does, I think it sends a deafening message to school districts across the country that it's that like, oh crap moment. We've all had that, right? Where you realize you're doing something wrong. And I think school districts across the country have adopted these parental secrecy policies. And they've done so, some of them may be in good faith, but they've done so because they've been so pressured and they've been so told by the teachers unions and the special interest groups and the LGBT lobby that this is what you have to do. But what they're doing is they're violating parents' rights when they do so, and they're going to be held liable for it.
Yes.
And this case tells the country that if you do this to a child, if you transition a child socially behind mom and dad's back without parental notification, without parental consent, they have the ability to sue you, and they can make you pay out the nose.
Yeah, I mean, and they've done this by suggesting that telling your child that their body is not a mistake is equivalent to physically abusing them. The reason we have any sort of carve-out in terms of parental disclosure, what limited carve-out exists in this country at all, is if you're being physically or sexually abused by a parent and you tell another trusted adult, that makes sense to most people. That's like, okay, that's the kind of thing where you're trying to get this kid some help. Telling the kid that their body's a mistake in the school and then saying, keep it a secret from your parents, in that scenario, the abuser is the school.
That's exactly right. And what these schools are doing is they are assuming the worst in parents. One of the things that struck me and that I liked so much about Jessica's case, because it's really hard for the left to attack Jessica as this, like, if you advocate for conservative ideas, the left automatically, labels you a bigot. It's really hard to say that of Jessica. Jessica, from day one, when she went to the school board meeting, said, I would support my daughter if I thought this was legitimate, if I thought this was coming from my daughter and not from the school, I would support my daughter. But you robbed my opportunity to be a supportive parent. And I think that message is so important, because schools, they're assuming that parents don't have their child's best interests at heart. They're then wedging teachers in between parents and children. And at the end of the day, this is really dangerous for kids. And when a child is identifying in a school setting by a different name, by different gender, sex, whatever, these are things parents should know about, and that parents and schools should be in communication with, so that kids can get the help that they need. This assumption that parents aren't going to get the help that the kids need is just, it's a lie. And I think it has political origins, right? They're afraid that a parent is going to get their child counseling that will affirm their actual, biological sex. And that's what the left doesn't want to see happen.
It's so crazy. So this Spreckles Union School District is about 90 miles southeast of San Francisco. So this is happening in Deep Blue, California, where this fight played out. The school district loses. They decide to settle in this case, as the mother is saying, you're propagandizing my daughter behind my back. You kind of indicated before that this is will send a warning shot to other schools. How perilous is it legally for a school to tell a student, don't tell your parents what's happening inside the classroom?
Yeah, I think it's a really bad idea for schools to do this. I think this case illustrates that. Now, there are cases that have been filed across the country, and some of them have a different outcome. But seeing this case here, where the school is having to pay damages, is really important. And I say that because there's a couple lines of cases here. So some cases are seeking injunctive relief. They're seeking the court to declare a school policy unconstitutional. And that's a good strategy, right? We want precedent that can be applied across the state, across the country. There's a value to that. There's also a value to cases like this, where Jessica wasn't seeking a declaration that the school's policy was unconstitutional. Her daughter was no longer at that school. She was seeking damages, financial damages for injuries that they suffered. And I think that has a deterring effect. And not many, I'm not aware of other cases that have been filed where a parent has sought damages, like Jessica did.
Yeah.
And I think she was smart for doing so, because I think, the universal language we all understand is money. And when school districts, especially in rural areas that aren't as flush with cash as, maybe the Montgomery County, Fairfax County, DC, area schools are, when they get, hit with $100,000 liability or more for more egregious situations, that's going to deter that behavior from continuing.
I really hope so. How commonplace is this now that you've spent some time on this issue? Has this become more and more common among schools nationwide?
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in states you wouldn't expect. This is not just happening in New York and Los Angeles. It's all the flyover states. It's Republican states you wouldn't expect. It's literally happening everywhere. And our phones at the Center for American Liberty have been really ringing off the hook for over a year now with these types of cases. Some of the cases you can't bring for a variety of reasons, but this one was one that was ripe to bring to court, and we're pleased to do so. We're also representing Aurora Regino in a similar matter up in Northern California. But again, this is not just happening in California; it's happening across the country.
Yeah, and the specifics of Alicia's case here is that they recruited her into something they called the Equality Club, and they're trying to teach her about all of these radical gender identities. So in addition to the deception that I just asked you about, how commonplace is it? You said it's happening everywhere. How much is this gender instruction taking over the schools now?
Well, I think you see it in these extracurriculars like the Equality Club, which let me just point out one observation, Vince, before I answer your question more directly about the Equality Club. Interestingly, this was the one extracurricular club that doesn't meet after school. This club met during lunch. And I think that's important to note, because if a extracurricular club is meeting after school, parents have to know about it.
Yes.
They have to come pick up their child or arrange for someone else to pick up their child. But if something is happening during lunch, that lunch hour, parents don't know about it. They're not told about it. And that's how this particular school and how other schools across the country are keeping things like this secret from parents. So Alicia, as you mentioned earlier in your broadcast, was assigned a research project on transgenderism. She was assigned required reading on how to keep your transgenderism from your mom. She was told you can't trust your mom. Your mom can't be trusted. All of this it's happening in a rural community and in California. It's happening everywhere.
Yes. So in your view, the kind of the gender ideology, the propaganda around gender, the suggestion that you can be born in the wrong body, it's pervasive now.
It's pervasive. It's in the more traditional classroom setting as well, right? You look at what are the history lessons that are being taught? What books are the kids reading, and what are the themes that are throughout those books? It's literally it's everywhere. When I was in school, the big thing was sex education, right?
Yeah.
And so much of this was limited. If they touched on it, like the big question was like, do you teach abstinence or not? And then
I remember
parents were always given a form they could opt out if you didn't want the school to teach your children about birth control. Like, that is not even part of the conversation today, right? Like that. It is, these conversations that they're having with kids, these schools are having with kids, are quite perverse, and they're happening at young ages, really young ages. I mean, Alicia was 11 years old. She was being told by her school, "You're probably bisexual." I'm sorry, an 11-year-old should not be sexual at all.
Of course. So how difficult was it, if you know, for Jessica to unwind this, what the school had done to her daughter?
Well, interestingly, in this case, when we look at the COVID shutdown, I shouldn't call it the COVID shutdown. When the government got really scared over COVID and shut down our schools, when the government did that, then the silver lining was it actually separated the school officials from Alicia. And it allowed Alicia to step back and to see, really, I think, this coercive behavior that she was sitting under, and it allowed her to really see who she is and to understand. So
yes,
it wasn't an easy kind of like detransition.
No,
but at the same time, like, it was a blessing in disguise for this family that Alicia was pulled out of that school.
Yep, and got some distance from her abusers, which helped her in this case. It's just an amazing saga. Mark Trammel, I want to congratulate you again and thank you on behalf of Americans everywhere who want to see decency return to our country. You're a part of that effort. Thank you, Mark, very much.
Thanks, Vince. Appreciate it.
Mark Trammel, the Executive Director, General Counsel for the Center for American Liberty. Big victory there as they force a school district to acknowledge that they totally violated the rights of this child as they attempted to groom her and separate her from her parents. It's all so crazy. A small victory, meaningful one for liberty here.